everyone. Welcome to the virtual after school club. I'm Sarah and I'm from UNO STEM Stars, and today we're going to learn a little bit more about slime and oobleck, and hopefully you'll have the chance to make some as you follow along. So the goop, goo, and slime craze. I want you to think back if you've ever heard or ever even made oobleck or slime before. It's pretty popular. It started around 2015, this whole slime craze thing, and kids really love it, and even adults really love it too. So just take a minute to think if you've ever heard of it, or maybe you've even gotten to make oobleck or slime. Well, let's investigate it. So today we're going to become scientists and create and explore oobleck and slime. So some questions to keep in mind while we're thinking about this and making it is, what is it? How does it work? And how can I make it? So we're going to start with oobleck. What is oobleck? That's kind of a funny word. So oobleck is a fluid made from cornstarch and water that temporarily thickens or solidifies when a force is applied. So now we know what oobleck is. Now we need to know what materials we need in order to make oobleck. So we need a bowl, a spoon, measuring cups, 1 1/2 cup of cornstarch, 1 cup of water, a Ziploc bag for storing your oobleck afterwards if you want to keep it, and paper towels for cleanup if anything gets messy. So go ahead and take a second to collect all your materials. All right, this is the recipe for oobleck. So first we're going to take a bowl. We're going to grab our cornstarch. Any cornstarch will work, just make sure it's cornstarch. We're going to grab our measuring cup. And we're going to measure out 1 full cup and then another half of a cup and pour it into our bowl. All right, so I have about 1 cup of cornstarch. I'm going to pour that into my bowl. Keep in mind, make sure you're doing this in an area that you're okay with getting messy, or it will be an easy cleanup, because cornstarch is kind of messy. All right, and I have about another half cup that I'm going to pour into my bowl. Now that it's all in my bowl, I'm going to take my measuring cup and I'm going to measure out 1 cup of water. So I have 1 cup of water, and I'm going to pour that into my bowl over my cornstarch. I'm going to start mixing my mixture. Make sure you get out all the big chunks. And once it becomes kind of thick, when you're stirring, you'll notice there's some difficulties to kind of stir it. So you'll have to use your muscles. Once you notice that it's becoming kind of thick, you can switch to your hands to stir it, because it will get kind of tricky to stir with the spoon. So this is what mine looks like so far. It's a little bit too soupy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more cornstarch to balance it out because we want the consistency to kind of be thick like a honey, or if you know what molasses is, it's kind of like a syrupy, thick consistency. So you kind of want it to be thick and chunky. All right. Okay. So your oobleck should kind of be hard, but at the same time, if you're not squishing it, it'll kind of just flow like that. But then you can put it together and then you can pull it apart. It'll easily break apart. So that's how you know when you've made your oobleck to be the right consistency. If you were experiencing the opposite of the issue I had, where your cornstarch, you had too much cornstarch, and you would just go ahead and add more water. So go ahead, continue to make this, play around with it. I didn't add any food coloring to mine, but that is something you could do to make it fun and colorful. While you play around with this, I want you to think about these questions here. Oh, my apologies. So think about what state of matter the oobleck is, because I'm noticing that sometimes it seems liquidy and sometimes it seems like it's a solid. Kind of test out different things with your oobleck. So maybe you want to form it into a shape. See how well it does when you form it into a shape. So if I try and form mine into a circle, what do I notice about that? And let your oobleck rest in your palm for a second and watch how your oobleck just kind of slides and oozes around. And take note of what your oobleck feels like. And then get cleaned up with your paper towels and then come back and join us for the slime portion. Okay, so now we're going to start with our slime. And then once we make our slime, we're going to compare both our oobleck and our slime together. So what is slime? Slime is a viscous, glutinous, or gelatinous substance. So if you've ever seen slime before, or maybe you've gotten to hold it, or you've read about it, it's kind of like, almost reminds me of Jell-O. It's kind of wiggly, and kind of just, you can mold it to whatever. Jell-O, you can't really mold to whatever. So that's how it's a little bit different than Jell-O. But the materials we need for slime are sort of similar for what we needed for oobleck. So we need a bowl, a spoon, a measuring cup, measuring spoons, half a tablespoon of baking soda, 1 1/2 tablespoon of contact lens solution, 1 cup of glue, a Ziploc bag to store your slime in afterwards, and paper towels to clean up. For my slime that I'm going to be making today, I'm not going to be adding food coloring. So if you would like to add food coloring to yours to give it a cool color, you can totally do that. I just think I would like mine to be white slime. So other slime recipes. So today we're going to be focusing on a contact lens solution slime recipe. There are like multiple other different recipes that you can use for slime, and some other recipes call for borax. This is borax. Comes in this nice big box. You use it for your laundry. And make sure if you're going to do a borax slime like recipe, that you're doing it with an adult, because borax actually can be kind of dangerous and has the potential to give you burns. So you need to make sure that you're being really careful if you're ever going to do a borax-based slime. And then another one is a saline solution. Saline solutions are very similar to contact solution. A lot of saline solutions you can actually use as contact solution. And then like an important note to make for your contact solution is that it must contain boric acid or sodium borate. So it has to contain those. So this contact solution that I have today, I read the ingredients and it has boric acid and sodium borate in it, both of them. And that's how I know it's going to work with the slime, because if it didn't have those two things, then it would not work. So for our slime recipe, we're gonna grab our new bowl. We're gonna grab our glues and we're gonna measure out 1 cup again. So 1 cup of glue, and then we're going to pour it into our bowls. So go ahead and measure out 1 cup of glue and pour it into your bowls. All right, so I have my 1 cup of glue all measured out, and I'm gonna go ahead and dump that into my bowl now. A good note to make about your 1 cup of glue, 1 cup is also equivalent to 8 ounces. So if you can find an entire bottle of glue that is 8 ounces big and full, then you would only need that 1 bottle of glue. You wouldn't have to measure it out. You could just dump the whole bottle into your bowl, make it a little easier on yourself. All right, next step is to take our baking soda and then get a tablespoon and measure a tablespoon of baking soda, pour it into our glue mixture, and then mix it. So go ahead and do that. Make sure your baking soda is scooped at the top so it's level with the edges, and then go ahead and dump that in and mix. I'm noticing as I stir, it's kind of getting a little bit more sticky and stuck together than regular just plain glue would. Think about what you're noticing while you stir and make this. And now we're going to move on to step 3. We're going to grab our contact lens solution. Remember, it has to contain the boric acid and sodium borate in it for it to work, okay? And then you're going to grab your tablespoon and you're going to start out by measuring out a tablespoon and then dumping it into your glue and baking soda mixture. And then you're going to stir that after. And then you're going to start to notice that it's going to get a little bit more thick in consistency, and it's going to start to get sticky like slime. So you're just going to keep on stirring that. Go ahead, use your fingers to touch it to see how sticky it is. Mine right now is still kind of goopy and gooey. It's not super sticky. It should be able to peel like off my hands. It shouldn't stay on it. So I'm going to go ahead and add another tablespoon of contact lens solution because that will help make it less sticky and more slime based. All right, so I added another tablespoon of my contact lens solution, and it's starting to pull off the walls of my bowl. So I think, yeah, here it is. So it's a little bit less slimy. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more contact lens solution. I added about a half a tablespoon this time. Okay. You can start to play with it in your hands. If it's still too sticky, squirt a little bit more contact lens solution in and then mold it back and forth in your hands. See how mine is kind of still sticking to my fingers a little bit? I'm going to go ahead and add just one more squirt of contact lens solution onto my slime that's in my hands. And that should fix that problem. All right. So I think I have successfully added enough contact solution because my slime is no longer sticking on my hands, and I am able to play with it and pull it, kind of mold it. So take a minute to get to this point. I didn't use all the slime that's in my bowl just because it was kind of a lot. It couldn't all fit into my hands, but I could go back and add more contact solution to the leftovers that are in my bowl, and then I have quite a bit of slime. Again, I did not add any coloring to my slime either, and this was just white glue. If you used clear glue, then your slime could be see-through. Okay, I want you, as you're playing with your slime, to think about some questions. What happens if I mold the slime in my hands? How can I mold it? Can I get it into a specific shape? Let's see if I can get a circle. Kinda. What happens if I let it rest in my palm? Kind of starts to ooze off. What does my slime feel like? Feels sticky, but it doesn't stick to my skin. And what state of matter do you think the slime is? Solid, liquid, or gas? Or does it change? So take a moment to play with your slime. Think about these questions. Have some fun. Try and make different sculptures and shapes. Maybe you like watching it run down. Maybe you just like stretching it. So take a moment to try all those things. So now let's compare our slime and our oobleck. So if we go back to our oobleck, oh, my spoon was stuck in my oobleck. So here is my oobleck in this hand, and here is my slime in this hand. Right away, I just noticed color differences. This one's a little bit more pure white, or this one's a little bit more off-white. Some more comparisons. They're both kind of squishy. This one's more squishy than this one. This one, when I press on it, it gets hard. And Oobleck is a little bit more runny when I don't press on it, where slime is still a little runny, but it's not running down my hand. So what comparisons do you notice? What similarities, what differences can you make from your oobleck and your slime? So thinking back to our question that we had earlier that we were thinking about when we made our oobleck and our slime, are they a solid, liquid, or gas? What is their state of matter? So this is actually pretty cool because oobleck and slime are super unique. I'm sure you noticed that when you would squeeze it, you could squeeze it into a solid, you could make it into a shape, but then when you held it in your palm, it would ooze like a liquid. So you notice that it was between a solid or a liquid. And this, we can use this information to determine that slime and oobleck doesn't have its own shape. But if we were to put it in a container or in our hands, it would take the shape of whatever we put it into. So it would mold to that. So if I put my slime or my oobleck into a cup, a drinking cup, then it would take the shape of the drinking cup. If I put it into a plastic bag, it would take the shape of a plastic bag. If I just left it, I just saw my slime, it was on this table in front of me, it just laid flat. It spread out everywhere because there was no shape. It was just laying on the surface. So it was taking the shape of the surface. So this is interesting because then it makes you question, well, if it's a solid, between a solid and a liquid, then what is its state of matter? What is slime and oobleck's state of matter? So both are actually considered to be something called a non-Newtonian fluid. And a non-Newtonian fluid is neither a liquid or a solid. They're kind of a mixture of both. So non-Newtonian fluid changes based on the forces applied to them. So if I take my slime, or if I take my oobleck, I'm going to do the slime because it's a little bit less messy than oobleck. If I press on my slime with both my hands like this, what happens to the slime? It spread out, right? So it took the shape of the force that I applied on it. The forces applied with my hands, pressed on them, and it flattened it. So non-Newtonian substances, when you apply a hard force, you can mold it into a solid. So if I really work hard forces, I can mold it into a shape. I molded this one into a little ball. It kind of looks like a roll, like a dough roll. But if I just have a soft force applied, so the only force here is it resting on my hand, then it's going to ooze into a liquid. It's going to take that shape. So it's going to start oozing. This is because if you think of the particles within the slime in the oobleck, when all the particles are being pushed together with a hard force, they're getting closer, they're getting tighter together, like you're getting packed into a room with a bunch of people. You're going to have a harder time moving past each other. So all the particles, when they're pushed together, have a more difficult time moving past each other. Whereas if you have a soft force applied, let's say you're in a super big room with very few people, then the particles are spread apart and it makes it easier for them to move past each other so they can move more. Just like if you were in that room, you would be able to move past people easier. So a polymer is another thing you could call slime in oobleck. Most non-Newtonian substances are polymers, and a polymer is just made up of a very large chain of molecules. So the glue in slime is made up of a long chain of polyvinyl acetate molecules, or PVA glue, So if you've ever heard of, oh, that's PVA glue, yeah, that's polyvinyl acetate molecules. So it's a specific type of molecule. And these chains of molecules easily slide past one another, and it keeps the glue flowing like a liquid. So just regular old glue, PVA glue, that's how glue is able to come out of the bottle, and then it'll dry as a solid and your stuff will be glued together. So then if we're making slime, once you add the slime activator, in our case, we added the contact solution, but you could add saline solution or borax. A chemical bond is then created. So it molds with the glue and it molds with the contact solution, and then they become one, basically. This is called cross-linking, and the activator is changing the molecules within the glue. So it changes it and it becomes a completely new substance. And our new substance that we created was the slime. So now I want you to explore some questions on your own with your slime and your oobleck. So how come some slime recipes work with contact solution, saline solution, or borax? Why could I use any one of those pretty much interchangeably? Some of the recipes are a little bit different in the quantities. So think, why would I be able to do that? Maybe even do a Google search or the ingredients. And do you know any other substances that are non-Newtonian fluids or polymers? There are a few, and thank you. Go ahead and continue to play with your slime. There's lots of other recipes. Make sure that you're being safe with your slime and you're in an area where you can easily clean up, and an adult knows what materials you're using. Like if you're using borax, make sure an adult knows, because borax can be dangerous.